What's up, y'all? The floor is yours. Is here for another Sunday show. We 15 minutes late on the count of me. My stuff wasn't working right, but that's okay because we finna drop in here and we finna rock the thing. And it's gonna be okay. Y'all ain't even gonna realize that we was 15 minutes late. It was daylight savings time. It made me feel like it was still daytime and it wasn't time to get on yet. I don't know what happened, but we are here for another show. Hey, Jamil. We finna get in this thing. Flex, go on and drop our intro.
They the Royce New Podcast, who want the smoke? Coming raw and uncut like who want this dope? Whatever you want, they for sure to cover the topic. From racial issues to fashion flies to cockpit. Y'all ain't never get it like this, cause they ain't never did it like this. We on our this the way the cookie crumbles for y'all. She gon' bring the inspiration to all. You know what's up with her. And this shit manifesting is a vision. And y'all gon' love TJ cause he the realest. From the heart of a mob, they the start of it all. You looking for a holler and holler at your rug. The professor, another lesson coming at you with the lessons. Get your edge if you knowin' what's good for you. They educated, but they still keep it hood for you. Won't need another, this one here really do it for you. Baby, you need yours. Yeah, baby, I'm in love with you. If it come down to the floor is yours. Let me show you how cool that floor is yours. The 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 floor is
Boom. We is introed. So hey crew, we got some of the same faces here, Flex and James D. And then we have a new Sunday face, Miss Luna. Hey, gorgeous.
Hey, beautiful.
Yes. So this is my first time gracing the stage with you. So that means we gotta cut up today. I likes to cut up a little bit.
Just a little bit.
I'm here for it. That's cool.
Yes. Yes. Well, as always, y'all, share the show. Make sure you like the pages, all of the pages, subscribe, follow on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all those places. Connect with us. And then right now, right now, go on your phone and click that little button that say share with that little arrow that say over there with over yonder them. Click that and share this show, y'all, because we want to connect to people. We want to get out there and get in front of people, and we want to draw in more people to talk to us. So, y'all, make sure that y'all do that. So, happy Women's History Month, because girls is the best. Yes. I'm sorry, guys. Sorry.
No arguments there.
We want to celebrate this month. Just like, February we do Black History, really supposed to be 365 or 366, depending on the year. Same thing with women. This is Women's History Month, but we want to celebrate women every day, okay? But we taking some special time out this month to celebrate women's contributions in history, culture, and society, because we know without women don't nothing happen, don't nothing move without the girls of the world.
It's a man's world, but there ain't nothing without a woman.
Just you better know it. You better know it. Yes. Yeah. So we just want to celebrate Luna, one other woman on the show. I'm just gonna pass it on over to you.
Absolutely. So happy Women's History Month, queens out there. Like, we literally rock, y'all. Do you realize that we have contributed to history, that we have contributed to culture and to our society at large? So tonight, we give kudos and roses where roses is due, because sisters, we rock and we're beautiful too. So let's literally sit back tonight, because we're going to be talking about some serious topics, y'all. We can't talk about women's history and we don't talk about the things that sometimes impact our women. So how many of y'all watching this have jumped into a committed relationship with someone, but then later regret it because you found out some things that person was doing that, honey, you ain't like? Or when people are just literally dating each other, we're usually just focused on income and hobbies, your favorite food, your favorite color, and what occupies your free time. But tonight, we're going to go a little bit deeper because your favorite food, honey, ain't going to tell me the real stuff. So we're going to talk about what mental health challenges sometimes come with just being in a relationship and a person just by themselves. We also going to get real deep into it and talk about, are you open to talking about your sexual intimacy and expectations? Are you able to talk about what your sexual history is? And we're going to bring up a word that some people don't want to talk about on live air, but that's STDs. Why? Because it's a part of life and we need to talk about it in our relationships. Is there anybody that your past sometimes interferes you being in your relationships? We're even going to look at if you have children from previous relationships. What are your relationships with them and the other parent? How does that look when you're trying to date now? And are your children and your family members respectful? Listen, I just know I said a whole mouthful. The little bit of the short of this is we gonna get real tonight, because for Women's History Month, we want to make sure that we're having healthy relationships. So Miss Cookie, I thank you so much for letting me be on with you tonight, Queen, because your show is gorgeous. But I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic back to you, Queen.
All right. Well, we finna get rolling. And y'all, as always, make sure y'all talk to us because, yeah, we like to talk. We like to interact. We cut up and have fun. But what's the title of the show? The floor is yours. So that means we want y'all to talk to us and interact with us. If you got questions, drop them in the chat. If you got statements, put them over there. We'll pop them up on the screen so that we can interact with one another. So Luna gave us a whole lot of stuff to start digesting off top. But I think that I am going to drop down. One of the topics that really stood out to me was the piece about kids, like people with having kids or whatever. And so y'all hear me talk about them kids of mine a whole lot. And I feel like when you get into the dating world, if you're a good parent, your kids is one of the first things that kind of come to mind when you're talking about dating. Now, granted, I ain't gonna say that all the way a kid should decide if you can date or if you can't date or whatever like that. But you want to make sure that you get with somebody that mesh well with your kids and that can interact well with your kids and that is supportive of your kid. Because I don't know what I would do if I like dated somebody that was like, I really don't want to be around your kids. I just come around when they're not there. Like that just wouldn't work for our vibe. So I think that is something that's super important. And then I want to kind of talk about the other side of it is just being a person with kids. And so like I haven't, I guess, really seriously dated somebody with kids. So I hadn't gone in being the other person coming into a relationship that has kids, but I've been the one with kids because I've been a parent my entire life. I'm convinced. I feel like I've been a parent forever. The oldest one about to be 18 though, and I'm looking forward to it. But nonetheless, just as a parent, it's hard to date sometimes, but I feel like communication is key. And then if you kind of talk about upfront what expectations are, and then now I don't believe in bringing people around my kids just off the rip, like we done went on one date and now you need to come meet my kids. But I'm gonna talk about them. Day number one, like you gonna know their area, you gonna know what they into, what they like to do, kind of how my household runs, so that it's not a surprise. But one thing that I'm gonna be transparent. I saw transparency somewhere in here. I'm gonna be transparent for a moment in the relationship that I'm in now. When I went into it, my relationship with my kid's dad was completely like non-existent. We hadn't heard from him in years. Didn't know where he was, no nothing. And so like when we came into the relationship, it was like, man, hell, I don't know if he dead or alive. I don't know if he exists. I ain't got a clue. We ain't heard from him. And mind you, my kids have phones. Like they've had phones forever. So it wasn't like he needed to communicate with me in order to get in touch with him. Like my kids ain't heard nothing. So we had no clue. Well, probably like maybe a year in, he kind of popped back up just randomly and sent a text like, oh, I want to see my kid. Like, where the hell you come from? And so it was kind of a weird point in the relationship because from jump, I've told you we ain't got no relationship. We don't hear from him, ain't heard nothing. And now all of a sudden, boom, here he is. So it was a point as a parent. I don't feel like it's good for parents to be in and out. I never have. I feel like either consistently be gone or consistently be here. Don't be in and out. But I feel like my son is old enough and wise enough to decide if he want to go or if he don't want to go. And so that was something that I did put in his hands. And so it's been times when he's decided to visit, and it's been times when he was like, I ain't fooling with him, I don't want to go. And so that was kind of it was a test, honestly, in our relationship, because my boyfriend was kind of like, well, I thought he wasn't around. He wasn't. Hell, I don't know where he came from, what rock he crawled from under. But that was a discussion that we needed to have. And if it could almost come off as like, oh, she was lying when she said they didn't have no relationship, where he come from. But because we do communicate and talk about things and have that openness, we were able to talk through it. And so then my son's dad came around for a while, then his ass disappeared again. And so we didn't hear from him for a long time again. And then his grandmother died not too long ago. And so then it's again, I need to take my kid to the funeral because that is his great grandmother. So it's again a weird point. So that's one of those things in relationships when you have kids that you might have to face. And especially if y'all don't have a cohesive co-parenting strategy or skill or plan in place. So it gets to be really, really weird. But hell, I feel like you just got to talk about it. So I think that was the one from the list that stuck out to me. And just again, discussing those expectations on the front side, but don't always think that discussing them up front means they'll never change. Like stuff changes. So sometimes you got to get in and talk about it as it's going.
Yeah. And I think the other person, James, you got a young child and he's single. What's your experience in that?
James, I thought you had a girlfriend last time we was on the show. Now what happened?
When I say not married, that's what I meant.
Oh, I was like, now hold on, because I missed them. Okay.
Yeah. Kids. What's the question?
What's your thoughts on what Cookie just said?
I mean, she said a lot though. I mean, like that was a whole bunch. Because I have some couple thoughts about certain things. Like, let's just go off script. You know what, man? F that. My kid would not go to the funeral in that situation. You ain't about to use my kid to make yourself look good in front of your family when you ain't. Like, no, champ. No. First of all, funerals are already traumatizing as it is. So most likely, you can let me know if I'm wrong or not. If he's not around your kids, then that means your kids probably not around that side of the family a lot.
They're not, but now what I will say about that is it wasn't his choice for my son to go. He texted my son and told my son that she had passed, and my son never said anything back. My son wanted to go. So I don't make him do or not do anything that he doesn't want to do. Yeah, so that was completely his choice.
Aiden my homie, man, so I got
yeah.
No, I'm just saying though, like, man, like some people want to look a certain way in front of certain family members. And we're not having that. But if he wanted to go and pay his respects, plus, he's a mature kid, so I can see different. But yes, having a discussion about children and your perspective about kids, those things are very important. I think it's extremely important to bring it up in the beginning because I've heard women talk about guys who lied about their kids. Like, man, I've only had I know a girl who told me once that she was dating a guy and he told her he had like 1 or 2 kids. And then he ended up having a whole bunch of kids. He just wasn't taking care of them. So, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can't respect a person who doesn't claim their kids or something like that. Also, having conversations about kids is important to me. Like, from a man's point of view, I would have an issue with a woman. Like, it bothers me when a woman with kids got too much time for me. Like when you can always make time and you can, cause like a lot of times it'd be like, man, I would want to do that, but I got my son or we doing this or we doing that or blah, 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 blah. But like somebody who always available when they got kids, for me personally, that's a red flag because I think that's one of the most beneficial reasons of dating someone with a kid is they understand that, you're not going to always be available to them. And that's why a lot of times, you know, single people without kids prefer to date single people without kids, or people without kids have an issue with that, or whatever the case may be. Some people get offended by that, but me, I don't. Like, I totally understand. You know, you're not obligated to my obligation. So when somebody does have an obligation and they're not keeping up with it, or like it's like they always free, they always available, they always got somebody that they can put their kid. Oh, I can leave the kid with my sister, my mama, my best friend, my this, my that. They always got somebody they can push their kids off of, and they carrying and conducting themselves like on social media. You wouldn't even know they got kids because they're always kicking it and out and doing stuff and you know all that kind of stuff. That's a red flag for me. So I agree, it is important to talk about kids. And I probably completely went off subject a little bit, but I still feel like I was on subject.
Yeah.
But you were. But Luna gonna tie all that in though. What you got, Luna?
Listen, parenthood is hood out in these streets. Regardless if you single, married, not married, adoptive, I don't care what you got. If there's kids in the mix, it's real hood. So at the end of the day, it all comes down to open communication. So like for me, I'm married, right? And I got 2 kids that I share with my husband. But there's times where that causes conflict because his parenting style is different from my parenting style. So it comes down to you really being able to like communicate with how your kids interact with your life and your everyday being. So I do agree with James when he was saying how, you know, that the kid, I'm glad that Miss Cookie let her son kind of choose whether or not he wanted to go to the funeral or not, because there is a good comment here. It said, you know, you shouldn't use your kids as a weapon or a prop to make, you know, you look good. And sometimes there are those absent parents that only get their kids when they need to do a photo op, you know? And if that is what you're doing, you really need to check your mental, because at the end of the day, like your kid one day is going to decide whether they want to mess with you or not. Like we got to understand as parents, regardless of if you plant that kid or not, every time you lay down and do adult time, there's a possibility, unless you got some other things happening, that this can go on. So when you know that, and these children are here, to the absent parents that's listening to this, it's your fault if your kids don't got a relationship with you. It ain't the baby mama, baby daddy. It's yours. So we got to stop literally like blaming other people and using our kids as pawns, whether you are in a relationship or not. Because even if you're in a relationship, you're going to have that default main parent. It just happens that way. It might be the mom, it might be the dad, but you have to have that communication across the board. And if you're dating with children, I love how Miss Cookie's like, look, listen, you ain't got to meet my kids, but you sure gonna know I got them. So when you do get the opportunity to meet them, then you know that this relationship is going to a certain place and we're going to do that. So that's what I got on that topic.
And it sounds like the whole issue with that cookie, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if a person is not engaged with their kids like they, you know, what we think they should be, it speaks to some other character issues or character flaws. Is that what you're?
Hell yeah. Because at the end of the day, if you can't be consistent and trustworthy with the one that grew out your body, how I'm supposed to expect you to be consistent and trustworthy with me? Like, I feel like the relationships to the people that grew from your body and the people whose body you grew from are some of the most, like, they speak volumes about what's going on. So yeah, absolutely. If you can't be good to your kids, I ain't even trying to hear it at all.
Let's shift a little bit. I think a lot of times when we're looking for a mate, I think we all have, like, you know, idealistically, all of these important things that we need to know and we got to discuss and we got to bring up and all of these things, right? But, you know, I've talked about it before. I think that sometimes when you kind of just meeting somebody or you decide to take it somewhere, I think it kind of comes off as, you know, weird a little bit to come off super heavy with super deep topics. Like, you know what I'm saying? So what's your credit score? So you ever had an STD? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, like those come across. So, but, and also we got to think about this too. You ever heard the saying, you can't bullshit or bullshit? And a lot of people be bullshit. You know what I'm saying? So you can ask people certain questions, and especially when they know, when that question is loaded for specific information, like, so how do you feel about kids? How do you feel about this? A lot of times that people trying to get in your pants, they're going to say what they think that you want to hear so that y'all can dance.
Yeah.
And when I say
so
dance,
how do you counter that then? How do you counter that? I mean, don't you, Oh,
I like that. I like that transition, Flex. This is the way you counter. I think that it's important to ask questions that are indirect, but you still get the type of information that you want. For example, I think it's a good question to ask somebody like, when you're having it's like you want to get people to get comfortable and get them off guard so that you can obtain the type of information that you want. So for example, I think a cool question to ask somebody is, so if you was down to your last $20, what would you do? You got $20, you can't save it, you got to spend it. What are you going to do? How would you spend it? You got to spend it. And I think certain people are going to answer certain ways. And when people answer, that's a good way to find out what do people value and what's important to people. I've heard somebody say, well, if I'm down my last 20, F it, I'm going to go buy me some clothes and shoes with it. I ain't got nothing else, blah, blah, blah. It lets you know what their priorities are. But it's somebody like, well, I'm going to buy some bread, some hot dog weenies, and I'm going to put some money in the gas tank so I can go make some more money and tell you what their priorities are. Somebody else is like, I'm down my last 20, I'm going to make sure that my kids eat. You know what I'm saying? Like, you ask them this hypothetical scenario, and you get genuine, real answers because you're asking indirectly to kind of catch them off guard. Another thing you can ask people to kind of really find out who they are and their type of character. What's your most embarrassing moment? Mostly everyone, like if somebody tells me, I don't have an embarrassing moment, you're a liar. I don't want to talk to you because you're not keeping it real with me. But most of the time, everybody has an embarrassing moment. They may not just want to share with you, but if you get somebody to open up and tell you about an embarrassing moment, you know what I'm saying? You're gonna find out some type of introspective view of their life and their past and their history. You're gonna find out how they dealt with it, how they managed with it, because most of the time, embarrassing moments are what? They're stressors, right? So you're actually finding out indirectly how that person dealt with adversity and stress. Oh, I fell in front of everybody. I did this. And you found out because they're going to tell the story of what happened and what they did when it happened. So you're finding out how they dealt with it. And you also find out what's a big deal to people. You know what I'm saying? Because if somebody tells you something stupid, like, oh, I was at work and I accidentally spilled water on me. Really? That's your most embarrassing moment in life? I can't take you serious. But if somebody tell you about some real traumatic stuff and they was able to persevere through it and they told you how they did it, that lets you know how somebody manages stress. Another thing I think is like, ask people a general question like, what do you feel are, like, if you had to define certain things, what are the roles of men and women in relationships? You know what I'm saying? You're not asking them directly about them, but you getting that information. You know what I'm saying? Like you're getting an idea of what this person views how a man should be, and you're also getting their view of how they feel that a woman should be. But you're asking indirectly, and you're getting them to open up and give that information. Also, another good one. I'm gonna read these comments in a little bit, Michelle Graves. Let me get my stuff off. I'm on the roll. You're typing, messing me up. No, I'm just playing. No. Also, I think like you ask somebody if there was a room full of all your exes and we asked them to come to a general consensus on like your one best positive trait and one negative trait about you, what would they say? You know what I'm saying? Like these are hypothetical questions, but you can get real information to find out about the person.
Yeah. And I see the point that you're making, like not being so direct, but I guess the point for me would be like these conversations happen over time.
Right.
So it's not be like
I get you, but I feel like if you're on an interview, if you're doing an interview and you really want that job, and that person interviewing asks you, "Have you ever been late? Have you ever been late before?" No. Like, do you love working and are you passionate about the job all the time? Blah, blah, blah. You're gonna say the things that people want to hear, no matter if it's date 1 or date 40. So I think that like sometimes to get real information from people, you gotta kind of bring it up in a way to get them to open up. And I think that's the importance of asking questions like that, as opposed to what's Social Security number? What's this? What's that? You know?
Yeah. So this is a good point right here. Luna, let's take this one.
So I would say, so I see this comment here. It said, what happened to falling in love? You guys are making this into a job interview. And I actually appreciate this comment. And I'm going to tell you why. I think we've turned our love life into what we see on movies. That you go on the first date, you set out the nice little outfit, you check the nice little place, you come together, and then y'all go round around 21 questions. Let me find this out. And sometimes the thing about love is it's typically that person that you don't even think that you love them for real. Now, this is not everybody's experience. This is mine. So I'm going to go ahead and take that. This is my personal experience. For me and my husband will be married for 8 years come May. And we got married very early. I was 21 and he was 24. We were friends. By the time we realized we liked each other, then we were dating for 4 months. He proposed and we got married before a year. Like, it wasn't a job interview. It was like, yo, you my homie. Like, you're going through life with me as I'm learning and I'm growing. You're telling me what's going on with you. I'm telling you what's going on with me. It wasn't premeditated. So what I would encourage is, yes, it definitely is, great to have questions. So then when you are going on first dates and things like that, because everybody can't have something that just happens. Everything's not a fairy tale. So I get it. You may be meeting somebody on a dating app, or you may see somebody, you slide in their DM and y'all go on the first date. You're going to prepare some questions and things like that. But sometimes it doesn't happen that way. Right. So I would encourage people to allow it to happen organically. I think sometimes we force love and we don't just allow it to just flow to us. I'm a big believer. You got to literally deal with yourself first. Like, when we're talking, the one thing that I wanted to bring out was the whole mental challenges. Like, you got to understand that your reality has zero to do with what you actually see, but it has all to do with what you believe. So you really got to understand that you have to believe who you are and know what you're bringing to the table. So then you can be more open to what that other person's bringing to the table. So then there is no BSing. Like, I'm bringing my true authentic self. So you have no other thing to do. I'm gonna make you uncomfortable. And as I'm making you uncomfortable, then this date is gonna be over anyway, because I'm bringing my true authentic self. So I think if we can be more transparent in our lives in general, and not just when we're dating, then it won't seem like an interview, but it will seem more like, here, and I'm showing up, and this is my true authentic self. Are you going to present your true authentic self or not?
Cool. James?
I want to respond to Torrance Hart. Torrance wrote, "What happened to falling in love? You guys are making this into a job interview." And to a certain degree, Torrance, I agree with you. That's why I'm not one for the, like I was saying, I'm not one for somebody grilling somebody. So what about this? How many kids you want? This, like blah, 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 blah. But as they say, conversation rules the nation, Playboy. So you got to have a conversation with these women, bro. You got to get to know the person that you're talking to. So you got to talk about something. And if you like somebody, your goal should be to get to know them. And the only way that you can get to know somebody is by engaging in, some type of conversation with some type of merit and some type of depth to it. We can't just have general conversation all the time. You're not going to really get to know the person. So it is important to ask those questions to get information, to try to get to know the person that you may be happening to fall in love with. Because let's be real about it. A lot of people done fell in love with the wrong people before.
Yeah. Cookie?
And I absolutely agree. I think, Flex, when you said about it happening over time, that was my whole thought process. Now, I thought James' questions, the way he was coming at them, was smart for some people. I felt like I was back in motivational interviewing training that I did last week for work, where you don't really ask them that question, but you're looking for that answer. And I felt like it was kind of the same concept. I'm like, James must have been in that training too. But I do feel like give it time, because sometimes we so pressed to not be alone that we just like, let me hurry up and get all this information so I can hurry up and go with this person. And it shouldn't even be that. Like, Luna said, let it happen organically. Absolutely. Give it time to let it flow through, see which way it goes, see what happens, and then ask those questions over time. But what I don't suggest is not asking at all, regardless of how you ask them, because then that's when you get into situations where everybody like, oh shit, I didn't know that. Well, I didn't know that you really like that. I didn't know that about you. Damn, you got 3 more kids I didn't know about. You better ask them questions that you want to know about. No matter how you ask them, get that information, because you don't want to be blindsided. Y'all been together 2 and 3 years and you find out something down the road. Talk, open up and talk.
Yeah, and I do agree with what you're saying too, like, you know, about giving stuff time, because, you know, you can ask how many questions you want. And like I said, people are going to answer the way that some people, let's use that. Some people are going to answer the way that they think, or say the things that they think you want to hear. But we know that, you know, in time, the truth will be revealed. And it's only so long you can wear that mask before you need to take it off and catch some air and the real you going to come out.
And so, I think, I agree with you, but having these conversations, as Cookie just reiterated, it's over time. It is not just a direct question, but sometimes I think it's okay to have a direct question. Like, hey, what's your idea of kids? Do you want kids? And then let's talk about, if they say yes, like, what does that look like, right? It's like, now it goes into, you know, what's your priority with taking care of kids? Do you allow other family members to be around me? Say, if I'm meeting my family, we're very family oriented and we support each other as a whole. But I know people that are total opposite. They don't want their kids around people, and they're very protective for their own reason. I'm not saying that's a right or wrong thing, but I'm saying is, okay, if we find out that you want kids, it can lead into other discussions on, okay, what does that look like if we do have kids together?
I see what you're saying, and that makes sense. But I think sometimes, like, honestly, a lot of the things that we're talking about, honestly, are things that could come up at the very beginning of a relationship or not so deep into it. But I think that, you know, when you're talking about committing to somebody or getting super serious and things of that nature, you want to find out more in-depth information on, I guess, for better back in terms, like their mentality on things, not just those specific one-off things. Let me ask you guys this, because we're talking about, because you guys keep talking about, like, well, we're talking about deep into the relationship. Okay, let's go deep into the relationship then. Let me ask you this. I want to ask you three, and then also everybody watching, I want you to comment. Let's say you're 3, 4, 5, however many years into the relationship, and it's like it's the day before your wedding, and you're having that famous conversation that we heard people talk about before. This no hold bar, no questions, not, you know, you got to put it all on the table before you jump the broom the next day. You're going to have this real deal conversation where anything that doesn't happen, anything that you done did, anything that just, like, you want to be able to go into this marriage with feeling like there isn't anything that you don't know about this person. And you can ask any 2 questions, and that person has to tell the absolute truth. What are your 2 questions?
I would say this. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Nova, you go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, like, that goes back to the fairy tale king. Like, when I got married, I won't having that conversation. Like, listen, when I said I do, I said that the first day. Like, and that's what I'm telling people. I know my situation's a little different.
Well, that's a fairy tale.
No, but it's not even a fairy tale. What I'm saying is, and it goes to what I was going to bring up next, because it goes to that mental challenge, right? Let's go deep into the relationship. I didn't wait very long to get married. So because of that, my stuff showed up inside of my marriage. And what we realized was there was some personal trauma that we both dealt with. Like, me and my husband both came in our marriage with sexual trauma. You know, mine was because of things that I was doing, and I ended up getting sexually assaulted, and his was dealing with prostitution and things like that. So here we go, 2 people with sexual trauma, but because we didn't know how it impacted us, because we were kids, like I said, I was 21, he was 24, we didn't realize it until it started bleeding into our marriage. So then we had to have a conversation then. That's why I'm trying to tell people, like, you can do all this trying to make sure that you're prepared before the next step happens. But a lot of the time, the real stuff don't happen until the next step happens. And you got to be able to have that conversation when that stuff show up and say, hey, look, why are we making some of these decisions? So, for example, I had to look my husband in the eye and say, look, dude, in the past, you've had some things that was temporary. But I said I do. That means I'm permanent. But you're treating me as if I'm temporary. So you gotta figure out whether you want me to be temporary or permanent. That don't mean that I was jumping out of the relationship. It don't mean that one of us was being dishonest. It just meant we didn't know that we had to deal with this thing until this thing showed up. So what I'm sharing is sometimes people have to give themselves the opportunity to let things show up in a relationship. I think we do so much trying to like guard our hearts that we want to know everything, but sometimes you're not going to know it until it shows up, because that's how trauma is a trigger. Now I know this trauma and you got to deal with it.
I agree with you. I agree with you. But you're talking about the things that you have to do to work through a committed relationship. Do you agree with that statement?
Yes.
Thank you. But the topic of conversation is questions to ask before committing.
Yeah.
So we're specifically right now talking about the things that we want to address before committing to someone. But you just gave great advice for people that are already committed that need to do the work to stay committed. That ain't what we talked about today.
I brought it up because you. So I brought that up personally because you just asked the question before you jumped the broom. What's the two questions you would ask?
I understand, but have you never heard about people having this candid, uncandid, no hold barred conversation before getting married? You've never heard of that concept in life? Yes,
I'm not gonna say I haven't. I think because I'm just and it goes back to the person. Like, you as a person got to be transparent. Like, I'm a transparent person regardless. So whether I'm dating a person or I'm in a committed relationship, you gonna know Malara's trauma. You gonna know why I act how I act. So for me, that's why I want to answer your question, but it goes back to the person. Like, you as a person, that's how you got to present, whether it's in a relationship, a friendship, or just showing up. It got to be more transparency and integrity across the board. So you don't got to wait till the night before your wedding and then being like, what you got to share.
I feel you, but there are some people that have done shit and been through shit before they commit, that they are scared to tell the person that they are with because they don't want to lose that person. So I feel like if there's a situation set up for a safe environment for someone to unload and get something off their chest, before committing, that's a real thing. So that's what I'm asking.
But what you're calling commitment is the actual ceremony. I think you committed to each other when you said, I will. Now you're just waiting for whatever set date you can. So my issue.
There are people who had these conversations before marriage.
I agree with you. I'm not disputing that the conversation hadn't had, but I think if you're using that wedding the night before as a time to say, hey, let's get everything off our chest, I think that you're at your.
That sounds good in theory, but before we go into this tomorrow, let me know if there's anything that I need to know before we say tomorrow.
So let me put
today I'm gonna let you make it, or I can forgive, or we can work through it. But if you tell me after tomorrow, it's gonna be.
But brother, I hear you. Yeah, like you ain't saying nothing different than you already said. So my point is, you can come and say that the day before, but that should have happened before. So I'm wrong. What I'm saying is, if I'm dating somebody or getting ready to get married the next day, and now I want to put them on the spot, like, hey, you need to let me know right now if there is anything else. Man, I should have been trying to work out and understand that thing leading up the months or the years, however long that we've been in a relationship. I should have been having those conversations before. I think it's unfair for me to try to put some pressure on you. Like, now, is there something? Because it's really, for me, that sounds like I got a trust issue. I got some issues with the way I think this about you, because again, the day before a wedding is not the time to put something on the table to say, like, yes or no.
Okay. Oh, wait. So wait, James, wait. Just tell us what your two questions would be. That's what we really want to know. What would your two questions be?
You gotta remember, I was asking the question, so I don't want
to. I know, but we don't think that he went all around. So now we want to know what your two questions would be.
I would have to think on it. That's why I wanted to get y'all first. I was asking the question. I hadn't had time to get mine together. You know what? But all jokes aside.
Let me read this real quick, James, and this just kind of saying what I'm saying. If you do it the night before, you're holding them hostage. All that money is spent. Hey, thank you. Say it. They're very end. It says Flex is right. I just think it's wrong to wait.
First, just don't want to answer the two questions.
So I don't want to have 2 questions. I wouldn't even do that.
You know what? Some people call it having this pre-wedding heart-to-heart.
I know.
You can, but you can give wrap the conversation however you want it. But there are people who've had talks about deep conversations before jumping the broom. And I'm not saying, I think right now we're having this debate on if it's a good idea or a bad idea. And I'm not saying either one. I get what you're saying. If you wait until the day before, it's kind of too late. I get that. I totally agree. But we have to admit that it's something that we've all heard before, so we know that it is a thing. So I guess what I'm saying is, if there were going to be something that you were going to ask, whether you think it's a good idea or not, what would they be? How about that? I'm just trying to gift wrap it better.
Cookie?
You know what? I don't have 2 questions, so that's why I was trying to get to James 2 questions, because I'm the one that's like the genie in the lamp. When they say the 3 wishes, one of my wishes would be, let me have wishes forever. So one of my questions would be, can you answer my questions forever? And so then that just gives me an unlimited number of questions to ask. If I wouldn't have 2 specific questions. And I mean, I can use myself for example. When I got into this relationship, I've had a situation that I had, like, it ain't my proudest moment, but I put it out there and talked about it in the beginning of the relationship, so you don't hear that shit later down the road from somebody else. So
that's the thing right there.
I was like, I don't want somebody else to tell my shit. I'm gonna tell my own shit. So
but
like,
you have to wait until the day before your marriage to have.
No, I'm telling it from jump, because that's just me. Like, we live in this world where people talk about you and have all this extra stuff going on. Then you feel like you got to live pretty and perfect and all this. No, I'm very imperfect. So when I screw up, I'll say I screw up. I'll tell you what I did. I ain't gonna hide it from you. Even with my friends, let me tell you what I done went through, so maybe you can not have to go through that. Like, that's just my personality. So I wouldn't necessarily have 2 questions. I think
Malara will agree with this. Like, if you're committing to with somebody the rest of your life, they deserve that information from the jump before they get so vested. And I ain't talking about just stuff. The hardest investment is your mental and your emotional piece. So if I'm investing enough with you, we moving towards a life together and planning the wedding, and we're the day before, like, man, I would look at her crazy. Like, hey, if there's anything that you need to tell me right now, that just telling me like you don't trust who you know or who you claim or acted like you've known over the course of us moving to this date. Now that's a whole nother issue with me. And I'm like, you don't trust me.
James' little eyes just about to roll out his head, and he still ain't got 2 questions yet.
Yeah, but you know what? I guess my question would be, I wouldn't have 2 questions. I guess my question kind of be similar to what you just said, Cook, which was like, what's anything that somebody could tell me later? Like, let me know now, because I'm gonna be real with you. I done so much bullshit in my life. I say all the time, no halo, no wings. I'm the last person that can judge anybody. So like, I really don't care about a lot of stuff, especially like when it comes to like your past, your history. Because like the last person I want to be with is a virgin anyway. Let me just keep it real with you. So say it again.
Last person you want to be with is what?
Last person I want to be with is a virgin. I want somebody who's been through some shit. That's just me. Like I'm just like that. I really don't care about like nothing that you did that some people say is quote unquote bad, because I'm pretty sure I've probably done worse. Let's just be real about it. So like that kind of stuff don't bother me. Like somebody like, oh, this person used to be a hoe. So what? I did too. Who cares? Like that don't bother me. Like, so you're not gonna get me with that. But I think what's important is, I think a lot of times, kind of like what Cookie's kind of alluding to, she's just not saying it, you don't want to be caught off guard. So I think that if somebody did tell you something super crazy, you can be like, yeah, but it was good though, wasn't it? All right, then you take care, boy. All right. You know what I'm saying? Like, because it's not going to bother me. You know what I'm saying? So let me see.
And this, yeah, I definitely agree, James. And even if it rattled me a little bit, I'm gonna pretend like it didn't rattle me while I talk to you. Then I'm gonna talk to my significant other in private. That's a whole different conversation.
Right.
Wow, I dated someone who said they had 3 kids, didn't find out until a year later from a random Facebook message that he had over 10 kids. Wow.
That's a big difference. Big difference. Yeah. That kind of go into Michelle comment I saw that said about, it said, I agree. My baby daddy talked about his ex's child, like he loved that child, but every time he has my baby, his mom or his sister over there watching my baby. This right here is why, it shouldn't stop at asking questions. Watch how a person move. Like your actions speak louder than your words. So what are you doing? It shouldn't always just be about what they say about themselves, how you really.
I agree. Also, back to what was the person's name? Mia. Yeah, like, was he taking care of the 3 kids? Because chances are, if you got 10, you're probably not doing that good of a job with the 3. And I think, honestly, for women or for anybody, if somebody does have kids, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, how they interact with their kids should be a flag that you're looking for. You know what I'm saying? How involved they are with their kids. And honestly, to me, a red flag is somebody who always talking negatively about their child's other parent. If you never have nothing, like, because the more and more you try to make them look stupid, to me, the more you look stupid because you was with that stupid person that you talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like, so down and bad about the parent of their other child. But to me, shit, you was with them, you laid with them, so they make you look bad. You know what I'm saying? Or somebody who doesn't take care of their kids and their excuse for it is always because of the other parent. That's a red flag for me. And I think that should be a red flag to all you guys out there too.
Absolutely, man. You got to see those actions. Luna, what you got?
So a big piece of this is your mental status that you have. Like, even before you can even talk about dating, it's like, what are you bringing mentally? Like, you really got to understand, like, what you believe. So, for example, if you only love yourself 85% and then someone shows up and they appear to love you 87%, that 1% gonna make you feel like, man, they love me for real. So then you ignore some of those red flags. So you gotta understand, like, you gotta literally love yourself holistically so that you can not entertain someone who is not going to be transparent, who is not going to be beneficial. Because a lot of the back and forth that we just talked about is individuals who's mentally probably jacked up. They ain't going to take care of their kids because they're not taking care of themselves. You know, they're not going to show up for you because they ain't really showing up for themselves. But then you got to ask yourself, why am I even entertaining these types of individuals? Like, am I going to even care about if they're taking care of their 3 kids or not, if the only thing I care about is that they keeping my bed warm at night? Because I got some mental trauma that's making me feel like I'm not enough. So if I think I'm not enough and they're here, that's enough for me. If I think I'm not valuable, but yet they buy me, you know, dinner or a bag that I've been looking for, then I'm going to ignore some of those red flags. So I feel like when it comes to mental challenges, we need to do better at addressing people mental, because if you don't, then you're going to settle for some of these crazy things. You're going to ignore some of those red flags. You're going to allow for people to come and bring you anything. And then it goes back to some of the question that I think James was trying to, you know, get us to say, like, when you're getting to know a person, if mentally you childish, then you're going to be childish in the relationship. Like, if you not coming mature, it don't matter what you got. So if you don't think that you're worth it, if you don't think that you're enough, you're going to settle for anything. And none of this conversation we having is going to matter, because you're going to continue to settle for the dude that got 10 children. Because mentally you don't know that you're worth somebody who's going to give you their time. And if they do have kids, I'm not saying don't date somebody with children, but you got to be able to sit back and see how they interacting with them. Because mentally, I know that this is what I need to be doing.
Yeah, that's good. And I'm listening to you use the word mature. And I think that's appropriate to use when you're talking about a person's mental mind state, or as part of their maturity. And it takes me to one of the other things, the topics was temperament. And, you know, if your temperament is right, anything that you don't like or that happens that you don't agree with, you're going to have the potential to fly off the deep end. And so I want to talk about temperament for a minute. I know a lot of times they say women are emotional, but if we're honest, I know some men that I just leave it at that. Men can be emotional, you know, not try to make it a negative thing. So can either one of y'all talk about how important temperament is when trying to court each other?
First, men should be emotional. I think we have to get that so it's not okay. But I know what you're talking about. Like,
so define the thing.
Plain where we talk about emotion.
Immature. When I tell you, that's why I use the word mature. And they try to say that women are emotionally immature. I'll be more specific, as if there are men that aren't emotionally immature.
Right. No, I agree with that.
Yeah. So you,
Well,
I thought you had something to say on that.
If we're talking about emotions, and again, I promise you I won't get too clinical, but this is what I try to explain to people, right? So when you're growing up, if you do anything that's outside of happy, your parent or whoever was your caregiver, change it. So if you throwing a temper tantrum, the first thing you ask is like, get up off that floor, what you throwing a temper tantrum for? If you're crying, it's like, what you crying for? I'm gonna put you in my arms, because that's basically the message I'm telling you is if it's anything outside of happy, then I want to change it. If you're upset, what you angry for? I'm gonna give you something to be angry for. Like, we say all these things. So then growing up as an adult, what ends up happening is if I feel anything other than happy, I'm not going to share it. So then what we do is we feed what I call the elephant in the room. So the elephant, the size is a part of it, but the biggest part is elephants have the world best memory. They forget nothing from birth into death. So as we're saying, I'm not going to deal with this emotion, we're essentially feeding this elephant. And the elephant says, well, you may not remember, but I'm going to remember. And then we're wondering why so many people are having mental health breakdowns, because that elephant is being fed over the years. And now that temperament, you're going to end up blowing up because I had nowhere to display it. I had nowhere to say, this is how I feel. So then we end up bleeding on the people that we don't mean to bleed on. So what I would say is you got to deal with the stuff that you've been covering up. I say you got to get in bed with that story, boo. Like, you got to literally get to the point where you're going to address your trauma. You're going to address your childhood. You're going to address the things that you're bringing to the table. Like, each of y'all bringing baggage. Yeah. Relationships ain't beautiful. You can brag about what job you have, how much money you bring to the table. You can talk about how you take care of your kids. All that's great. But if you don't deal with the baggage of your daddy not showing up, the baggage of nobody coming to your competitions, the baggage of nobody supporting you when you went to school. Like, if you don't deal with those things, it's not going to matter. Yeah. It's really not going to matter.
And I think a lot of the times you don't even know, like a lot of stuff we just normalize. And I remember having this conversation on the Ask Professor show when, and to James' point, sometimes you don't go right at a specific question, but it's things that you can figure out. Say if you ride together with your mate in a vehicle and you just see this crazy level of road rage, I think that's a telltale sign about how they lack, appropriate level of temperament to control themselves, because the old saying is they did it to somebody else. It's just a matter of time before it's you. And so you got to have those conversations. And, sometimes road rage can seem, like an insignificant, trivial issue. And it may be, but I think at the minimum, it warrants a conversation to be had about that, is because, again, if that makes them mad, someone else in their relationship could make them mad. And are they going to act that way towards you?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think basically what we're talking about is, I talk about it all the time. You can blame me for how you feel, but you can't blame me for how you act or how you react. So I think a lot of times it's like, especially like when people are getting to know people, I think a lot of people always try to come across as job interview perfect. Kind of alluding to what Torrance talked about earlier. You treat it like a job interview. When you treat something like a job interview, people are going to do what? They're going to act like they're in a job interview. They're going to put their best face forward and they're the best view and presentation of themselves, but they're not being real about it. But like I said, time will tell and the real person will come out. I think it's important to pay attention to how people respond to adversity and how they react to, to negative things and negative situations, because that's going to be the most telling about anybody that you with.
Yeah, that's cool. So, I'm going to go to some of these comments and then we're going to get ready to wrap the discussion up. We had one from Tiara. Luna, do you mind taking this one?
Oh, I don't. Absolutely. I dated a guy for 3 weeks and ended it because he had a daughter, but wanted to spend every weekend with me. That was a red flag for me. It kind of goes back to what James was saying. If there is somebody who have children, but yet they always have time for you, that definitely is a red flag. But then this will be my other caveat as well. Did you have a conversation with homie? Because sometimes we make assumptions, and I'm not saying this was you, Queen, at all, but I'm just telling you what assumptions are. It means I'm making an ass out of you and me. It's in this description. So what I would say is sometimes it's having those conversations. Yeah, the red flags may come up, but there's a beauty in being able to grow in those situations and simply asking like, dude, How are you so available? Like, what's your situation with your daughter? Do you have a relationship with your daughter? Because here's the thing, some parents aren't deadbeat parents because they want to be. It's because the other parent may not want them to be in that child's life. We don't know all the things. So it's being able to kind of open up some of that conversation to just say, hey, you know, what's really going on? So again, I'm not speaking to your specific situation, Queen, at all. I think for real, if you knew it was red flags and it didn't sit right with your soul, I say kudos to Chuck and the Deuces. Like, it's not worth spending energy where energy is not meant to be. I just want to bring a point up to it. Is like being able to just have those communications on those tough conversations to be like, hey, dude, like, it seemed like you real available, but I know you have a daughter. What's up with that? Because then that may spark some maturity on his part, because he may have not even thought about it. He may was just excited he had a new boo. And, you know, when you get something new, you want it all the time. So I just think we need to do a little bit, you know, better of having those conversations. And if y'all did, then kudos for real to you, Queen.
Yeah.
Yes, and then we're going to grab this comment from Mia. There was a whole conversation over here going on about the parents and the child support and stuff, but Mia said paying child support is just the tip of the surface. I think we need to look at totality, financial, emotional, quality time, etc. with your kids is the key, and that is absolutely true. Sometimes child support is used as like a pawn. Somebody said something earlier about using the kids as the pawn, but sometimes people use child support just to get back at the other parent, and it shouldn't even be that at all. But child support, I don't know about like where it said it, but it used to be like super low, like $100 and some a month if you weren't working. That can't even pay daycare for a week, let alone talking about a month. So like when you're doing those bare minimum things, you can't come in with the mindset that, oh, I pay child support, so I ain't got to see my kid, or I pay child support, I don't need to go to any games. So I do agree that it is, I mean, it's multiple levels to that. Now, just because you're going to games and going to go see the kid, do that mean you don't have to take care of them financially? Nah, that ain't true either. You're supposed to be able to give to your kid in all aspects and from all realms. So yes, absolutely agree, Mia.
Okay.
Yeah, I see a lot of people on here talking about their road rage. A couple things. Number one, the other person can't hear you, and if they can, it's a problem. Number two, your goal should always be to make it home. So the way to avoid road rage is to have the mentality that you're a defensive driver, so you're not initiating anything, and to always let everybody else make it. You let everybody else make it, you're gonna make it home. That's just the key. And the other thing is, your horn is used for warning, not for discipline. So if you can honk at somebody to avoid something happening, that's the proper use, or to alert someone, that's proper usage. If you're honking on your horn after an incident has occurred, that's attempting to discipline someone, which could escalate to something else and to other issues. But the main thing is, I think what we're talking about when we're talking about the road rage is how people deal with anger in the way that they spaz out and act out. Because some people be like, stupid, and keep moving. But when somebody goes off on a long tirade tangent about an incident on the road that happened 5 minutes prior, that's definitely a red flag, because that person has some real anger issues. And like, it's not like your anger issues are only channeled just to driving, because that's how you're going to deal with all forms of adversity that come your way. So that's that. So
potentially, yeah.
Just try to chill on it.
Yeah, man, it says a lot. So, Miss Cookie, you got one more you want to talk to, or are you ready to close this out? It's your call.
Look, I'll say I think these road rage ones that had me laughing. I think we done hit most of them. But y'all always remember, if we like miss your comment, or if it's some topic you want to talk about, get at us, let us know, so that we can talk about stuff y'all want to hear about. They said they agree, James. I was over here thinking, how many times James took defensive driving, because your definition of what to use the horn for, like, just sounded like out the book. But I'm gonna leave that alone. But good show, y'all. Look, he like, Great show, y'all. Enjoyed it. Thank y'all for interacting with us as always. It's always super duper amazing. Flex, you got a commercial or something today, or we wrapping it?
Oh yeah, here we go. Let me mute my mic.
step in that water, step in that water, step in that water. Yeah. You gotta be willing to go out and get it. You gotta dive in it, go and get it. Step in that water, step in that water, step in that water. Yeah. You got
Yes. So shout out to Miracle, aka Pookie, aka MC Fresh, the official barber for the Floor Is Yours podcast. He is located in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. So if you are in that area, stop by and get your haircut. If you're not in that area, connect to him on online so you can buy like some t-shirts and stuff. Because I be getting shirts from there all the time. If you got the shirt with the hang on it, then that means you MC Fresh. So connect.
Oh yeah, man. He got a dope clothing line too, man. So yeah, appreciate you plugging him.
And he do special orders. Like I order my family reunion shirts from there. So you can always order custom shirts and stuff. So yeah, connect to him. We finna wrap up the show. We gonna end with some parting thoughts. James, what you got for us?
My parting thoughts. Shout out to all the Black refugees that are stuck in Ukraine. And that's it.
What you mean?
I'm just saying shout out to all the Black refugees that have been stuck in Ukraine.
I know some brought that comment up. That's all.
Yeah,
bro.
Oh, you know what I'm talking about? All right, then.
But the audience might not know.
Oh, well, you know, a lot of people are trying to get out trying to evacuate, but there are people that were preventing Black people from being able to flee the country. And I think that's crazy if everybody's trying to flee, but instead of you fleeing when you have the opportunity to flee, you're going to stand there and make a human chain to prevent Black people from being able to board trains to get out of there as well. So I can see if everybody's about saving themselves, but there are people intentionally like, no, forget about myself. I'm going to sacrifice myself, and I'm going to stay to block these people from going out there. But I think it's also part of a bigger narrative to try to make us see some type of evil. I don't care if you're racist or not, war is wrong, and we can all see the trickle-down effects already of this war and what's happened to us as far as gas prices, inflation, things of that nature. It's all cyclical, and it's related to the incident that's taking place up there.
Okay. Gotcha. Flex, what you got for us?
Just simple, man. Just reminding folks, to James' point, I wouldn't necessarily approach a potential relationship like it's an interview. But like we said, just those conversations that are had over time. I think there's some things you can ask in the beginning that are appropriate to ask in the beginning. But as you're, courting each other over the months or years, however long it goes, I think you need to have those tough questions, those tough and difficult conversations. We all talk about that surface level stuff. How much money do you make? What's your credit score? But those deeper things, I think, need to be had, and not just ask them and let that be the end of it. Observe them. You can observe people patterns over a number of months or years, whatever, to really understand them better. I think I saw some on Facebook that said it wasn't the disrespect in the past; it's the continued patterns. People make mistakes. We all are human. We make them, but the greatest apologies are accompanied with changed behavior. And if we're not doing something to change that behavior, it's just empty words, So that's my words. And I appreciate everybody for tuning in, and thank you all for joining the show and being part of this great discussion.
Yes, Miss Luna, what you got for us?
Man, I just look, you got to know that you're enough and you're valuable, because when you know that, you won't put up with the stuff. Like, that's the reality. Like, when you know that you are the bomb.com, when you know that you are created with greatness and you are powerful, then that eliminates some of the crazy relationships. But also know that if you find yourself in crazy relationships, sometimes it's not a failure, it's a lesson. So sit back, learn the lesson, and be able to just move on and implement it along the way. And one day, your magical relationship will hopefully flow its way to you.
Yes. And then my parting thoughts is misery loves company, and my mama said I couldn't have no company. So sometimes you gotta cut off some relationships. Be that with family, friends, whoever. Sometimes you just gotta let that shit go. And then sometimes when like you've had situations to where you're not on the best of terms with somebody, let that shit go. Stop living in that shit. Because you'll drive yourself crazy trying to follow around somebody else, see what they doing, worried about them or whatever else. You just gotta let it go and move on. You can't be happy when you always worried about something that you can't change. So I just feel like sometimes you gotta move on. Move on. Yeah, so that's my parting thoughts. So as always, thank y'all for tuning in. Thank you, crew, for coming through because it was a wonderful show. Miss Luna, I'm so happy to have shared the screen with you today. Beautiful. Loving it. So make sure, even though it's the end of the show, go on and share it because then the whole show going to be on that. Miracle, I see you. Yes. Share the show to your page. Make sure you invite your mama and them, your cousins and them, your aunties and them. Tell everybody about it. Tell your haters because they're going to watch you closer than anybody else watch you. They stay tuned in. Long term, always watching. Hey, we see you. All right. So tell strangers about us. When you the floor is yours shirt and wear it out in public. Tell everybody about us, okay? We at the floor is yours on all platforms, so tune in. See us there. Thank y'all, everybody. Thank you, crew. Thank you, audience. We love you. Flex, drop the outro.
Now it's my turn to tell y'all about my big bro Gerard and the podcast crew. From TJ the realist, Miss Cookie the professor, and you can't forget about the inspiration shit. They talk about it all, got advice for us all. You'll never know how deep the talks will go. On the weekdays, the weekends, they be going live with the topics. Then they do the segment where the floor is yours. You can post your comments, you can post your statements, yeah. You can ask your questions, They can help you get your life moving in the right direction. If you need advice on marriage, advice on finance, advice on healing, advice on credit, this the podcast that you need to check out. Go ahead and tune in, you'll feel what I'm talking about. Baby, don't get it. The floor is yours. Yeah, baby, I'm in. The floor is yours. If it come down to it, the floor is yours. Let me show you how blue. The floor is yours. Hey, the floor is yours. The floor is yours.
James, next time they put you on the Jumbotron, you better turn up. Stop sitting there looking like that. Thank y'all. See y'all later.